Engines drop to a nervous idle and then cut. The column noses past a stand of birch and friezes. The road pinches into a narrow crown over wet ground, and across it, angled like a slammed door, sits a Soviet KV-1. Summer light draws a hard edge along its turret cheek. The steel looks as thick as a cellar wall. Drivers climb down with cigarettes and squint as if staring might-thin armor. Horses stamp and back, leather creaks, gasoline breath hangs with rye and dust. For one beat, it feels staged, one tank playing army, and then the column remembers that fuel ahead is already being burned by empty gauges. Orders cut the quiet in clipped German, 37s forward, unlimber, quick. Canvas flies. A Pak 36 bumps off its wagon and skids into a shallow depression. Lieutenant Karl Weber jogs with a map case slapping his thigh. Range by eye. Traverse left. Fire when I call. The first volley is all flash. White sparks spit off the KV's turret. Black smudges drift. Rounds skate away shrieking into the birch. It is not a conversation. It is a lesson. The KV answers deliberately. In the cupola, the world is a slotted glare. The commander lines a finger down a sight and calls targets on an intercom that crackles like rain. The first Soviet shell smacks dirt beside Weber's gun, a geyser of soil and a hard crack. The second finds metal, rings the shield like an anvil, bends it, and snaps a rivet that takes a loader's skull away. The arithmetic arrives whole. Thickness and angle devour speed. The 3.7 centimeters doesn't bruise 75 millimeters at this range. Underestimation, paid in blood, is irreversible. Radio nets hiss alive as if language itself is trying to force a bypass. Weber's call sign, single enemy heavy tank obstructing MSR south of Raseiniai, Pak ineffective, guidance? Another voice. Forward companies fuel low. 2 hours if resupply doesn't bite. Division net, bridges at the Dubisa, tracks in the woods, a farm lane maybe, risk of bogging on the shoulders. Maji Otto Reimann listens with his watch pinched in his palm and draws a slow line through his timetable. Inside the KV, all that German noise becomes habit and a handful of words. Wait. Confirm. Kill what matters. Through a dusty periscope, the road becomes a range. Birch poles, a wedge of rye shivering, the flat face of a gun shield with figures prone, and behind them the long lung of a truck column. The loader breathes too fast because shells weigh more in the fourth hour. The commander sets priority, teeth before meat, and keeps soft skins for later, if later exists. Weber forces sequence into his head because sequence stops panic. He spreads the guns. 2 more Pak 36 slip along the ditch to take oblique angles and try to catch a seam. Light tubes move like they believe arithmetic can be bullied. Their next volley staggers in time, dust popping on the tank's paint, and again sparks, again the useless whine. The KV swings with unhurried certainty and claps around into a truck cab whose driver hadn't learned fear yet. The cab collapses. Gasoline blooms. The column inhales fire and remembers that air burns. Up the line, a horse refuses the traces. A driver swears the shoulder looks firm enough. He eases 2 wheels into rye, 2 on the crown, and for 3 seconds the trick works. Then the soil liquefies, weight slides, and the truck settles like a hand pressing a wet sponge. He digs with his boot, digs the truck deeper. Shoulders here were made to keep wagons honest. Now they make a funnel. Past the bend under birches, Sergeant Anya Petrovna lifts a handset that sputters, her radio wedged into a farm cart. She speaks into a net, like fog, giving the KV's silhouette a platoon's height. She names 2 heavies, maybe 3, enough infantry to make recon cautious. Not a lie exactly. There are Soviet stragglers in the trees. But her job is to inflate the KV's idea in German minds. Hours wasted here will be worth days on another map. Weber watches a PA crew drag their trail by hand because tractors cannot move under that stair. He inventories ammo, slender AP for light tanks, nose fuses meant for thin plate. Against a slanted cellar wall? Prayers at stone. He thinks of he and spall and nerves, then throws that thought away. Steele's math doesn't hear wishes. He sends a runner because radios are not promises. The KV shuffles a meter, one track grates on the crown, the other grips the verge, and that small shift breaks German geometry. Brackets unhook. The angle that looked promising becomes a new face. The loader feels heat off the breech on his forearm and tells himself, quietly, because words shake, that discipline will stretch endurance longer than guesses allow. Fuel unknown, rescue unknown. Fact, hold a road by making the road bite back. The PA crews keep working because working is what you do. When thinking means staring at armor, you cannot hurt. A gunner tries a low shot at running gear. The round kisses a link, a fountain of sparks, but the chain holds. The KV answers with a calm burst from its coax. The verge sprouts dust, a sapper puddles under thorns and measures distance in breaths between bursts. Ryman studies a map that looks like lungs. Roads are bronchi, bridges are alveoli. The division breathes as well as this thread holds. Far forward, panzers run their speed into opportunity, smelling it like ozone. Pull a tank battalion back to swat one Soviet heavy, and the spear's edge dulls. Leave the road corked, and tempo dies slow. Doctrine in one hand, Lithuania's soil in the other. Horses and trucks still tied together. He calls for sappers. He whispers heavy options. A supply officer walks the ditch, counting silently. Jerrycans stacked like tins. Men sharing lighters in restraint. Horses, sweat-whitened. A horn bleats thinly up the line, impatience wearing fear. He pulls fuel off the crown into shade. Silhouetted men are targets. Gas is temptation. He wonders what happens if dusk falls and fuel is still lined like offerings. Under WWII, a third PA crew works in damp chaff. One man scrapes a shallow pit with a spade. A depression is the difference between cover and a proud shield. The heat isn't bad, the brightness is. The KV sits low and blunt, patient. Beyond it, Soviet infantry slip away, heel to toe on pine duff. A few cross a clearing where they know they will be seen, planting false tracks. Recon's binoculars deliver the wrong picture to the right eyes. Weber notes old gun shields with bolt patterns you can count at a distance and tallies losses. One crew down to 3. One trail pin jumped, one clinging to faith in angle. He cannot indulge despair. He calls for smoke. Smoke doesn't kill. It opens doors. Sappers are tying grenade bundles, checking fussing fuses. They'll need a corridor of white to crawl into, and that fog will blind friend as much as foe. Petrovna hears a runner at the German set, heavy gun requested, and hopes it comes late. She repeats, tank holding, guns ineffective, bypass impossible. Tone holds men together. She adds a lie, probably more of us in the woods. Caution eats minutes. Minutes are meat. A half-track tries the flank. Track should cheat mud. It gains 2 meters, sinks with a slow shame, and the KV ignores it. Lesson sticks. The causeway is the only throat, and the tank owns it. Weber eyes the rye edge where his best crew sits and weighs point blank. At knife range, a POC might find a seam, driver's plate, turret base. Knife range is yards, not metaphors. Yards require bravery that eats men faster than doctrine allows. Smoke again. The fog will hide sappers, blind gunners, and invite the main gun to fire at breath instead of shapes. He gambles anyway. Ryman's runner returns with the summary no one wanted. Anti-tank ineffective, bypass untenable, forward fuel critical. He bites the word. Hold the spearhead. Call for the 88. It is not doctrine to drag a sky gun into a roadblock, but Barbarossa keeps asking tools to lie. A flak needs space, time, hands, a smooth bed. It is scarce, loud, and dies ugly when it fails. He demands it anyway. Light prayers are being ignored. The KV's turret halts, then resumes its slow swing, as if it smells the shift. The loader's muscles tremble. The commander listens for heavy wheels, for a different clatter, for men straining under weight. He knows the enemy has a bite. He knows they need to bring it close. He touches the periscope housing twice and tells the gunner to be ready to punch at smoke. The column sags into waiting. Drivers sit with backs to tires, hats tipped, eyes shut as if invisible if they don't look. A corporal walks the line collecting cigarettes because gasoline is a jealous god. Jerrycans warm under palms like animals. Horses blow soft raspberries. Every shot is a clock tick. Fuel becomes a story told if this road stays shut. At the anti-tank pits, men chew dust and count the seconds between the KV's shells to build a new clock. Training targets never looked like this. Men hit by tank shells don't leave much to recognize. No one says that out loud. They adjust sights they don't believe and keep their hands busy. Weber speaks steady into the net. POC cannot penetrate, close assault likely to bleed. Request heavy AA deployed as AT. In the pause after, he hears metal arguments up the chain and the absence of forward engines that should be here. Pride is a foreign language. Fuel is the only argument. Petrovna hears rumor of the heavy gun moving. She seeds the air with confidence that might not be true. KV unhurt, angling for a new trap, to slow decisions. She asks the North Crossing for news and gets static shaped like words. If they can hold until dusk, river lines east breathe longer. Ryman orders smoke pots staged and sappers briefed in hand language. Manuals are clean, fields complicated. Smoke buys approach and charges cost letters. Without smoke, the 88 silhouette is a paper target. He plots a path through rye and assigns 6 backs to do the work of a tractor. He tells himself that one crack in that armor will unstick an hour. The light guns throw one more volley because routine is a rampart men can build when bullets lie. The KV's coax rakes the ditch. A sapper kisses mud and lives by an inch. The main gun hammers and another truck dies for being shaped like a cab. The nearest village adds the thunder to weather. At the very front, a man with a whistle, once traffic in a square, tries to uncork a jam designed by carts and feet. He signals and blows thin and learns. These roads don't yield, they take. Weber calls for smoke and watches gray spread, milky and treacherous. The rye bends under men hauling a barrel too valuable to lose. The turret slews toward the whiteness and holds, a compass needle pointing at threat. Decision congeals into one ugly choice. Drag the scarce gun forward and expose it, or keep sparking off steel until dusk, and let the day rot. Crews know this future. Sappers know what smoke means to bodies. The KV crew knows a long barrel is in that white. If the light won't bite, find a jaw that will. The road is corked and the clock bleeds. Dust hangs like a low ceiling. Men slide to ditches to smoke, some for nerves, some because gasoline and fear weigh the same on the tongue. The causeway shoulders slump into damp earth that keeps weight and never returns it. Beyond the bend, the KV's gray hull sits squat, turret canted like an ear listening to a whisper. Every minute is a leader burned forward, miles delayed backward, compounding over the net. Weber scans over his field glasses. Rye like a pale sea to the right. A ditch with a sheen. Reeds tick. Something crawls there. The KV's coax ticks in clean 3 and 5 round rips, not waste. That rhythm says they're counting belts. Counting means they're staying. He lowers the glasses, sees 3 3.7 centimeter tubes squatting like penitent worshippers, men wiping sweat and anger, and he orders them to keep heads down until a reason exists to lift them. Recon tests flanks like thieves. 2 motorcycles hug the left verge and skim soft ground for half a heartbeat, then sink. The first rider hurls himself clear, the second is swallowed by ditch. They freeze and taste the calculus of exposure. The tank's main gun slams once, chewing the ditch edge. Cleverness scatters. The KV driver bumps the hull, a degree here, a degree there, making slabs flash at new angles. Inside, steel-on-steel moves with the turret like a clock. The gunner's wrists flick traverse. The loader coils and uncoils. A hand bumps a rack like a prayer. They pick targets that bleed logistics. Men at guns, runners with handsets, vehicles angled to leave. Pride doesn't get a shell. Consequences do. Forward tanks radio warnings like fuses spitting toward powder. Fuel low. Fuel critical. Halted. Ryman chews a pencil until wood turns to bitter mash. He sees the division's artery drawn thick to Kaunas, sees the apology he'll owe in the language of tempo. Manual says bypass resistance. Reality says soil. He looks at Weber and asks, "Can you move it without me moving my tanks?" Weber calculates, a sapper platoon close enough to touch, bundles of grenades tied like winter sticks, homemade satchel charges, and trust. Smoke pots that make thin walls the wind edits, horses still hitched to light guns, AP that chips and ricochets. He says into air, "We try close and inside. We lose men." He requests the big and loud because there is no gentle left. Sergeant Petrovna lies in pine litter, radio like a sleeping child under her chin. Soviet infantry trickle behind her, tall and thin, planting forks of tracks like crooked signposts. She keys and says KV still blocks, bypass fails, German guns ineffective. Her signal trips and staggers through trees, hands lift antenna coils to coax a line. She hangs a second tank on the net and lets rumor do work. When recon hears footsteps in shadows, they slow. Ryman hears raw numbers unattached to grammar. 2 dead at the gun, 1 engine burning, road impassable. He peels his cap, wipes his forehead with his sleeve, notes the false edge of water in the ditch. Pulling tanks back would be pulling teeth out of speed. Not pulling is starvation. He orders sappers forward and asks regiment for a flak as if he is a thief being polite. Sappers crawl like roomers, flat to the earth, sacks and sticks under arms, cigarettes behind ears for later. Smoke pots drop into a rough arc. White-brown fumes claw up and spread low, a wall that breathes, a belief men can step into. They do, one by one, pushing into a fog that promises everything and owes nothing. The KV watches weather. The gunner lowers a hair. The commander taps the periscope twice. The coax flicks precise geometry into the smoke's edges, chopping grass stems, sending spurts of dirt that look like men exhaling. A heel shows, vanishes. A satchel drags like an animal balking. The main gun speaks twice into the densest white. The tank's recoil nods to physics and resets its gaze. Weber counts bursts. He hears conservation. He hears a loader's fatigue in the slight stretch between shots. More smoke, he orders, not all in one breath. 2 men with charges for the track teeth, not the hull. Immobilize the beast and negotiate the day. He gambles with 2 families' future. The first pair snakes into white. Fingers find steel and the cold edge of guide teeth. 1 man slides a charge and hooks it over a return roller. The other kisses fire to a fuse, and they slide back, infant slow. The turret swings to a new arc because another Soviet saw a different motion. Coax threads crimson across white, arms go flat. The charge pops with a hard white sound, and metal screams. A tiny silence. Then the KV answers itself. Engine pitch changes. A track squeal roughens. The hull moves and then hesitates. Inside, they understand faster than anyone else. The main gun spits. A POC shield disappears like a card removed from a house. A crewman scrabbles at dirt that has no lower place to offer. Weber jerks 2 steps and stops because forward is under the muzzle. Anya writes, "Possible track damage" in a small hand. She puts it on the air, knowing immobilized is still lethal. She adds that the KV is shifting left to make Germans see new menace. Confusion fattens minutes. Minutes feed withdrawals. Ryman hears the charge's signature and wants it to be solution. He orders another try, staggered, not massed. No clumped courage into a measured kill zone. He asks again for the flak. The answer arrives with friction and a clock he doesn't like. The heavy gun will come, but dusk is its cloak. It must be stolen from its real job and delivered without catching a Soviet battery's eye. Light guns sulk under camo. Crews strip excess and stage for displacement that isn't retreat. Weber saves 2 pack rounds by taking them back from loaders' hands. Metal as weight is better than metal as waste. Someone starts a song, another man kills it. Smoke and waiting make humor cruel to hold. A horse-drawn wagon inches back along the ditch. The driver lies low. He passes a fuel truck, jerrycans stacked too high along the bed, metal glittering. A man taps a cigarette and then pockets it, a quiet act of discipline. The KV ignores the truck. It chooses another gun and cuts it in half. In a grove, arguments in tonnage and doctrine. "Bring 2 Panzerschars back," says a heavy platoon leader. "Swift, safer, freeze the artery." Ryman points to the forward net bleeding fuel and says taking teeth from a spear mid-bite will lose a day later. He says flak again and gets a look that calls him a thief. It isn't his to lend. It will come from somewhere, a barrel dragged under a sagging cloud. Night leans into the tree line. Damp gathers in ditch bottoms. A pool of motor oil grows slick rainbows under a dead truck. Night is a tool and a trap. Weber plots an approach using a fold in the field and a farmhouse lean-to. Smoke must pulse, on, off, to confuse and breathe. A solid wall invites blind shooting. He assigns runners to shepherd the big gun when it rounds the last turn. In fog, wheels obey hands more than engines. Inside the KV, the hull gunner rubs his fingertips to feel if sensation is still there. The loader rests his back on a pause that is not rest. He tallies a wall of kills, soft skin, gun, machine, man, and refuses to lean against it. The commander tastes metal. They inventory out loud, masked as a joke. Rounds? Enough? Fuel? Enough to worry. Hours? As many as we make. Runners are sent because radios are ghosts. A boy with a sling bag crawls under a line of jerrycans and delivers a slip. Heavy gun inbound. Prepare cover. Assign sector. Words worth a breath. Weber lets himself imagine an 8.8's muzzle brake catching the last light like a coin. Bypass attempts continue because someone always believes in miracles that fit in a ditch. A half-track eases along the right shoulder, men with poles testing like they're gauging a river. The left track sinks. Engines bite air. Dirt spouts. The machine lists like a boat. The KV throws a shell into the dirt at the nose. Soil splashes. The half-track retreats all the way. Mercy as message. The causeway is the only way. A peasant watches from behind a fence, hat off, measures the long argument against harvest. A heavy gun will scar his rye. He will later stack shell caps in his shed. Metal is always future. Today his fence posts go missing under German hands, dragging an 88 across earth without tracks. Twilight dulls edges. The KV shifts, the turret rotates. German bracketing evaporates when walls move. Tracers arc lazy from men who cannot see but will not be still. Weber stops a crew from wasting the last of their pride. He saves sightlines with will and threat and waits for the gun like a man counts dawn. Anya hears a low engine note that isn't truck or tank and knows what it must be. The Germans bring their anti-air into fields to kill what their Paks cannot. She keys. Long barrel, heavy carriage, horses in harness. The words may fall into blank air. She adds, no KV movement, to keep the enemy calculating when to risk a push. Men in a rye field cradle something that looks like a bridge. an 80mm flak, barrel long as a promise, moves by curses and rope. Smoke hangs in rags. A sergeant holds his breath before each expected impact, then releases when only German swearing arrives. Stakes go in with muffled thuds, lines pulled taut, hands moving in ritual. Weber meets the 88 at a farmhouse wall and helps lift a trail like a private because backs matter more than rank. He paints the KV's current field with his forearm. The flak leader nods and lays the gun with divorce court care, sight picture built finger by finger. The first round is unboxed like holy bread, brass bright in last light, two men handling it like it might be the only one that counts. Night swallows detail. Lanterns die under palms. The KV becomes a black absence. Muzzle flashes turn the tank into a woodcut for a blink. German shots are guesses bracketed by previous guesses. Sappers lie with faces in mud and listen to ground. Traverse whine, link slap, diesel inhale. Some will crawl all the way. Some will be silhouettes at the wrong beat. Ryman, under a farmhouse eave, feels damp creep up his trousers. He rehearses an acceptable sentence for a commander who won't like hearing a day went to a single tank. He watches Weber whisper to the flak like coaxing an animal. He looks at still trucks and sleeping drivers, each jerrycan a small bomb under moon. He has made his choice. Night must carry it to morning. The KV breathes smoke and steam in measured exhales. The crew shares a metal cup, warm as a palm. The commander listens, not with ears but bones, for a sound he's heard about in rumor card briefings, a long barrel dragging over gravel in the distance. He tells the gunner to watch for a muzzle break's ghost and doesn't add, "We may have to die cleverly." Two men probe the ditch in last light. They get within speaking distance and lie still as soil. The coax sweeps a foot high like a mower set wrong. One whispers thanks to no one and inches back, dragging his mate by the belt. Behind them, the 88's breech claps shut like finality. Dusk thickens. The 88 settles, trails dug, smoke veil breathing like a wounded bellows. Men glance at each other like gamblers at their last throw. The KV waits at the throat, silhouette angles drawn hard. In the coming dark, something big and loud will decide how the road lives. The last light squeezes under cloud. Rye heads hiss as wind dies. The column looks like a parade that forgot the step. Behind the bend, a crew slaps spidery legs into dirt. Men strain on ropes, an 88 sliding forward by muscle and faith. Smoke coughs and pools. Gaps show. Mistakes will cut silhouettes. A sergeant whispers numbers, tastes oil, and for a breath, only the weight is real. The KV hasn't moved its hull in an hour. The turret has ghosted through 90 degrees twice, stopping in clicks like a clock arguing with itself. Inside is a hot metal cave. The loader's spine is black. A tin cup rolls with each clutch nudge. Words are rationed. Optics are dabbed dry with cut rags. They feed the gun on discipline, not horses, not trucks. Tubes first. A periscope frame holds a slice of world, bent rye, smeared road, thin smoke. Time is measured by empty cases clanging at ankles. Weber's pencil leaves a gray scar on a bypass that ended in sucking mud. The forward net speaks polite desperation. Low fuel, 50 liters, 30, no reserve. Pack rounds now chip and flash and ring useless bells. The decision migrates to the 88 and back. The big barrel must earn its theft, or everything behind it begins to cool in place. Ryman studies the road like a clamped artery. Reroute? Shoulders drink axles. Pull panzers back? Politics dressed as tactics. He declares the heavy forward and pushes sappers with smoke and bundles. He writes core. Obstacle removed in hours. A promise he cannot guarantee, but will be measured against. Anya, under linden branches, nurses a dying battery. The net is crowded with names becoming history. She tells rear the heavy gun is here, true or useful, and that the KV is a platoon because fear of shadows buys minutes. Her captain exists as a torn cuff on a fence. She repeats, staying, block, until ammunition, no more. Dusk multiplies sound. The 88's crew works by feel. Trail spades bite, shields sink. Everyone knows a flare would turn them into a children's book silhouette. Weber crouches beside them. The ground smells of damp and brass and sweat. A runner belly slides clay and brings the line. The KV's barrel is right across rye. The flak angles to catch the turret side at swing's end, geometry under a sky ready to blossom fire. The KV driver nudges left, breaking habitual brackets. The commander sweeps periscope in narrow arcs, rides old tracer ghosts. Night steals distance. Everything is maybe. They whisper count of rounds. They agree to fire only on two senses, sight and tremor. The loader flexes an arm cramp and refuses to look at the pile of shells behind his boot. A sapper runs out of ground at the ditch, passes a charge back, makes the sign of a cross, not his. Coax speaks. Earth flickers in their faces. Smoke sputters and tears. A flank team wades up to chests. Charges become stones in a black soup. The KV sights the smoke's thickness and near verge and drops two shells there, fast, to harvest courage. A flare arcs and turns the field into an engraving. The KV is a wedge, the 88 a spider. Weber chops his hand, low. The KV blooms a white door, the round pit's road, canvas flutters with holes. The aimer chews the picture, not the face, the seam. Turret ring over mantle, cheek sloped into front, a maybe. The 88's first shot is physics clearing its throat. It shrieks, kisses steel, and wanders. The KV answers with two. A piece of shield claps. A man screams and bites his sleeve shut. The 88's loader slams another cartridge. The crew shifts a hair to a new line. Weber wants to pull the gun back and push it forward at once. A new smoke pulse. The 88 inches closer on six legs, trails tearing, biting, tearing. The aimer keeps both eyes open and counts the KV's habit. Overswing, small pause, correction. He bets a round on that pause. Loader answers with nod and round. Inside the KV, the radio sings once and dies. Anya's voice fades at the verb. The commander speaks her words anyway, hold, and watches the fuel needle lie less. He knows he's saving shells he doesn't have for targets that aren't here. He moves ammo with feet to keep the floor level. He has two heavy rounds he will not waste. Sappers creep into the door that immobilization made. One reaches steel, cold and curved, and for a heartbeat, it's a cow's belly in winter, warm and huge. He tucks a charge on a tooth, pulls the cord, glances back, and that glance saves him. He sees the flash and dives. The coax peels bark above him. The charge goes off with a wet slap that makes metal scream and the tank sag a hand's breadth. The KV tests and feels left sulk. The main gun debates, then speaks at a shadow that might be a man, might be a bush. The coax cuts the nearest hedge into confetti. The tank is now a pillbox with a heart. It fights as if mobility were a luxury. Weber hears the change in engine note, the wrongness in turning. He signals, keep the 88 alive, fine left, for a sliver shot. They are inside 200 meters, a room with no roof. Fire draws glowing calculus. Night presses close and damp. A horse snaps its tether and drags a wagon 3 feet before weight says no. Drivers in the ditch smoke in cupped hands. No one looks direct at the black wedge. Staring feels like prayer to the wrong god. Someone writing times on his palm with a stub, someone whispering, someone praying at the 88's trail. Anya's set knocks her hip. The 88's bass note is unmistakable now. She keys to a void. Heavy one here. Tank hurt, angry. East. She tells them what she wants the road to believe and what she knows it will do regardless. Ryman feeds the last smoke forward to make the KV blink, then orders a sapper demonstration left to give the 88 one more breath of angle. He thinks of doctrine where a colonel said, improvise or fail. He is spending uncomfortable choices and signing men's names with them. The 88 fires into muzzle burst timing, a round threading into the KV's open throat. Inside the tank, something falls like in a church. Shatter, flame, fragments. The gunner's hands open. The commander slams the hatch sleeve. The loader looks for instruction and receives physics. The KV is still itself, but bowed. Dawn gray finds edges. The 88 staples rounds along the ring gap. The KV answers, slower, picking only what matters. The crew passes shells like pulsing hearts, fingers splintered, nails black. They were told to kill air, now digging earth. Doctrine is a polite suggestion the field ignores. A sapper's charge finally chews deep into the bad track, and the KV slumps shoulder deep into the ditch, spinning the good side with rage. It is anchored and still making the road a cage. Immobilized means the geometry changed. The teeth are still sharp. Ryman watches from so near he tastes cordite. He sends orders forward, siphon between trucks, consolidate, abandon redundancy, move. Logistics is a rifleman now. If the road doesn't open, panzers will coil into fields and idle themselves to sleep. Inside the KV, the commander orders the driver to hold. Fuel is for angles, not fantasies. The loader fingers the last of a rack and feels absence. The shells they choose now are coins on a palm. The gunner lowers into the sight, blinks cartridges into clarity, and lets one go where a moving shape becomes significance. The 88's fourth round rips an oil line. Black breath huffs from the KV's rear. The fifth drills into a softened wound and sinks. The KV's next shell clips a tree and detonates early, chalking an outline of the German gun. Weber bares his teeth without humor. The end shape is visible now, and the bill is written. Anya hears clean German order words, picks out steadier tempo from the 88 and fewer from the KV, and knows a lie cannot outlast ground truth. She says thanks to an empty net, then tells rear, road almost theirs, pull faster. She shoulders her set and moves, because standing sticks you to history. The KV commander hesitates at the hatch. Open means bullet or breath. Orders say, burn a tank that cannot move. Time saved today buys something east tomorrow. He bangs the periscope with knuckles, nods to the loader, touches the pistol at his back, lifts his hand without waving, and drops into a crouch that is half fall. The 88's next round punches just off the ring where armor trusted itself. A hole appears like a coin slot, and something ugly scythes inside. The smoke grows a fat yellow thread, fuel burning where it should not, and a flicker that isn't gunfire. For a heartbeat, the KV looks like anger, then like a kiln, then like a shape of heat. The German crews pause, not pity, gravity, and then move. Weber lifts his hand and drops it. The gunner plants the final nail. The shot is single and absolute. The KV's barrel dips, heat lifts, slumps. Dead. The silence after is not silence. It's the absence of a voice that defined a day. Men do rituals, throw a stone, light a cigarette, swear they can still hear it, and then the work starts because time remains a currency. Ryman does not cheer. He points. Horses rise, shake. Handbrakes click in a chain. A driver wipes his eyes as if smoke got them and not feeling. The first trucks roll slow, as if not to wake something. Then speed, because minutes now must become kilometers. A staff car picks its line between fallen shields and brass glint. The column inhales. That breath smells like oil and urgency. Anya watches lead elements lick past the clearing like water around a boulder. She writes the time. The radio is heavier now that hope has shifted to someone else's story. She moves with the last infantry down a track that is legs first, then a bridge if luck holds. She looks back once at the KV that held the road with a hand over a mouth and does not let herself think long. German field gray shapes already ring it. Weber climbs onto the crown on knees, older than morning. He strokes the 88's trail like a horse, checks hands and eyes, counts without saying names. He thinks of first sparks off turret cheeks. Disbelief turned plan. Plans written fragment by fragment because the clock wrote harder. He knows the cost. Sappers whose names he learned at smoke pots. Drivers who will not drive. Precious shells burned into dirt. And he knows the purchase. A road turned back into a road. Sun lifts and washes color. The spearhead keys in with strained humor. Fuel trucks finally migrate, jerrycans flung like bread. A sergeant measures liters with a cigarette stuck to lip. Horse wagons clatter and pick up engine rhythms. The division schedule is sealed with a visible crack. Even sealed, cracks remain. There is no ceremony for the KV's crew. There is ash and noise and noon on the way. A German camera clicks. The lens fixes the tank canted in the ditch, track looped like a garter, turret scarred with neat, expensive holes. Helmets lie where men were, shields bend like toys. Brass arcs on the verge show where the 88 had crouched. Birds would have to shout over engines. Hours were burned in place of fuel that should have burned on road. A battalion lost morning and found late noon. Reports will not account for everything that didn't happen elsewhere because of here. One tank transformed schedules into stories and forced doctrine to marry improvisation in rye under a sky that didn't care. Men on both sides will remember the sound of shells when they bit and when they bounced, and the way smoke smelled when it hid and when it betrayed, longer than tread prints. Somewhere, a staff officer will draw a straight line and write regained momentum. The road quiets like a shop after a long shift. The surface is scored with track, palimpsests of rubber and steel. Brass winks in sun along margins. A smear of oil rainbow bright lies in a puddle near the ditch. The KV sits canted like an argument settled, smoke thinning into threads. Engines ahead catch and deepen. Drivers climb. A hand lifts and sends the river forward. Ryman orders siphons and spacing, pace and spacing. Weber steps aside as the first truck noses past the wreck and the 88's muzzle glances light like a coin tossed to fate. The column rolls and the road breathes. The next decision rides the wind in, smelling like fuel.